Elon Musk and his gang of dogebags have been having quite a difficult couple of days, and that makes me really happy because not only are they getting hit with lawsuits, not only is Elon getting pushback from within the Trump administration called out by MAGA, but he's also getting called out on his own platform. And one of the most humiliating moments we have seen for Elon in his time as co-president, Senator Tina Smith, who we are going to speak to in just a second, so stick around for that, called out Elon Musk, ratioed him, put him to shame on his own platform, and because of that, he threw a little temper tantrum, and we are going to get into it all. But before we do, if I could quickly ask you to leave a like on this video, and if you haven't already, and you enjoy our channel, to hit that subscribe button. It goes a long way, and it really does mean a lot to me. Now, before we get into this incredible interview with Senator Tina Smith, we need a little bit of context on this tantrum of those tweets, but I also want to hear from Jessica Tarlov, who called out the reason Elon was so upset.
You would know that what Elon Musk did, this directive, was a good approach to it if everyone had gone along with it. But you saw all of these Trump cabinet appointees who instructed their bureaucracies not to respond. Department of Defense, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the State Department all said, don't worry, if you saw that email, don't say anything. So if it is going to save America, why don't the rest of the people that Donald Trump loves think that it's a good idea?
Well, if you're in the Pentagon, you can't Elon Musk email him and say, oh, I staged a coup in Cambodia last week.
But that's an argument for Elon Musk taking a breather before he sends an email like that to millions of people and say, oh, maybe folks who work on classified information can't respond to this right away. Or maybe a federal judge who's going to get this email Saturday night or whatever isn't going to be able to talk about privileged information that's going on in their courtrooms, for instance.
I might just write back and say, see me, if that were.
Yeah,
that's a good one.
I'll
see
get
me.
back to you.
Especially people who want to curry favor.
Now, I wanted to start with that clip of Jessica because I think it provides pretty good context for why Elon was so testy. On all sides of the aisle, Elon Musk is getting called out. He is being hated, and his approval rating, which was already pretty low, is beginning to tank even more. And that's why when Senator Tina Smith called him out, boy, was he not happy. And let's get into those tweets right here. In response to a tweet from Elon about telling government workers to say 5 things they did that week, Tina Smith wrote, wow, well, here's a summary of what Republicans voted to do this week. Defund Medicaid, defund Medicare, not to protect IVF funding, not to protect veterans' health care, not to take on prescription price gouging, not to protect food assistance, not to protect our avian flu response, not to protect funding for firefighters, and not to protect funding for police officers, all to pay for tax breaks for corporations. And Elon responded to that message, writing, what did you get done last week? Senator Smith went on to add that Elon is the ultimate dick boss, except that he isn't the boss. He's just a dick, leading Elon to respond, horribly, what did you get done last week? And then we see Senator Tina Smith clap back, writing, Elon Musk, I hate to break it to you, but you aren't my boss. I answer to the people of Minnesota, but since you bring it up, I spent last week fighting to stop tax breaks for billionaires like you, paid for by defunding healthcare for moms and babies. Senator Tina Smith, thank you so much for joining us today. We recently saw you get into a bit of a back and forth with Elon on Twitter, calling out his, let's just be honest, dickish and dangerous actions, triggering a bit of a temper tantrum from him. We've covered that on the show. Everyone was so excited to see that pushback, but I wanted to talk more specifically about where it originated. You were talking about and you were calling out the vote-a-rama that had just happened a couple of days ago, and these actions from the Senate voting against the most just common sense reform. Could you speak more on that? And then I certainly want to get into some of the Elon stuff.
Yeah, well, so we stayed up all night long on Thursday night fighting off this Republican budget resolution to basically the whole purpose of this is to give giant tax breaks to billionaires and big companies, which is bad enough. But the real question then is, how are they going to pay for these tax breaks? And they're going to pay for them by taking your health care, by taking health insurance away from moms and babies, by taking away veterans benefits. And I want to shine a light on that. And I want people to understand that this isn't just some abstract thing. This is actually what their plan is. And, you know, in the middle of the night, we did this thing where we asked the Republicans in the Senate to say, theoretically, is there some amount of money that you would think above that amount, you shouldn't get a tax break? Is it $10 million? Is it $100 million? Is it $500 million? Will the Republicans in the room at least say at $500 million, that's too much money to make and still get a tax break? And they couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And I mean, that, you know, there's a lot of noise around what it is they're trying to do. Frankly, they're trying to distract us. They're trying to confuse us. They're trying to exhaust us. But if you just sit back and you think about what's really at stake, who's going to win, who's going to lose, that's what this is really all about.
Well, and I think that's so important because we recently saw Joe Rogan and like some of the saddest bootlicking I have ever seen talk about how, oh, Elon's not after your money. He's not corrupt. He's already got 400 billion. Why would he want more money? It's like, well, do you know how we got to the 400 billion in the first place? These are not people who pick a number and then stop at it. Clearly, as we saw with the Republicans, and the reason why I wanted to start with the Votorama, maybe rather than the Elon back and forth, which was just so incredible, is because what Elon is trying to do with his 1,900 tweets a day is distract from what is actually happening, distract from the dangers of the MAGA majority in Congress, distract from the dangers of Doge. And what you did was shine a light on that. And I think that obviously there are a lot of Democrats stepping up right now to do so, but certainly not enough. So how are you pushing your colleagues to kind of take a similar approach, take a similar tone, and make those moments that matter so much on social media so we can direct people's attention to what matters?
Yeah, well, so I think there's a bunch of things that are happening right now that are, I think, important to pay attention to. One is just like thinking about my Senate colleagues. I mean, let's just be honest. I'm a 66-year-old grandma, and I'm like probably on the young side of the United States Senate. And I'm a pretty pissed off grandma right now, but that's just what's going on. And so part of it is helping people to understand the power, people who are my colleagues in the Senate, understanding the power of stepping away from, you know, media like, you know, CNN and MSNBC, sort of the ways that they've always communicated with people, and say, wait a minute, look over here, this is where the action is. This is where people who are not like the deep political insiders who are just trying to figure out how to live their lives and afford their lives, this is where they're getting information. And like, we want to be there talking to them. And that's part of what this is about. I think my colleagues on the Democratic side are kind of tuning into that. I'm working with Cory Booker on this a lot. Cory is amazing and really understands this. So I think that's one thing. I think another thing is just like people taking a breath and going, okay, like their whole plan is to exhaust us and distract us, and we can't fall for that. We need to stay focused on what is really going on, and that is what I think we're all doing, and we want to help other people out there doing. You know, the world is full of like idealistic, you know, organized activist people. Many of them probably like to watch what you have to say because it gives them a sense of you know, power and autonomy in this moment, and just sort of saying, okay, pay attention. What these guys are doing is trying to tell you, you don't have any power. You can't do anything about this. This is all out of your hands. These, you know, this is what bullies do all the time. And that's what these people are. They're bullies, but they're bullies with a lot of power. And we have to shine a light on that.
Yeah, we do still have agency. And I know a lot of the time it doesn't feel like that. In the first week of the Trump administration, it certainly felt that way. But when we speak up, and it's the same with what you're talking about and the approach that we take to social media, right? If you're just doing the traditional MSNBC or CNN hit, it only gets seen by so many people. But if you're bringing your voice to social media, it can be shared. It can be, you know, clipped by people like me. I like to take what you have to say on the Senate floor and bring it over here, share it with more people. And if you use your voice, then it starts to echo out. And we're really starting to see that with just what is so delicious in these town halls of Republicans just getting booed, and they so deserve it. You obviously are probably hearing not boos, but similar complaints and agony from the constituents in Minnesota. What are you hearing about Trump 2.0 that's different than Trump 1.0? Because I think that it's so important that we make these very hyper local examples, the narrative on top of everything that we're talking about that is constantly going to get the headlines and the coverage. So what are you specifically hearing on the ground?
It's so true. And I love the point that you're making, because people they do get overwhelmed by the, big national stories. And they also, it seems kind of abstract. Like, what is this really
Yeah.
about? How does this really affect my life? And what I've really been, I've been sort of surprised by it, to tell you the truth, but I've also been really inspired by it, is just literally, well over 100,000 Minnesotans have reached out to my office just in the last several weeks, since all of this Elon Musk Doge thing started, with some version of, this is terrible, this is not what I wanted, this is not good for my neighbors. I know somebody who's been laid off. I know somebody who's being affected by this. And it suddenly becomes hyper local and very, very personal. And those stories, I think, bring us together in a way to give us the sense of power to stand up to what Trump and Musk and all this MAGA movement is doing. I mean, when you get this is just one example.
Yeah.
Last week, I had a group of students come in who were visiting from Minnesota. They came into my Washington office, and as we were talking, one of them said, "Senator Smith, my dad has worked for, he was in the service. He's worked for the Veterans Administration. He just got a transfer to a new job within the last year. So he's probationary employee, and he just got a pink slip firing him."
Yeah.
And my family doesn't know what to do. What's he going to do? How is this? It feels so disrespectful.
Yeah.
To treat somebody that way. And I could be on your show for an hour telling you the stories that I've just personally heard that are like that. And what it gets to is how these people, Trump and Musk and these folks, they have this sense of power. They have the sense that they can do whatever the hell they want to. They can disrespect people. They can take away people's dignity just because they have the power to do it.
Yeah.
And that's where the Dick Boss thing came about, as I was thinking about this on Saturday night. We've all had somebody in our lives who tried to use their power to cow us, and that's what it feels like.
Yeah, and I completely agree with the focus on the very local stories, and that one really is so important, because when you look at the national numbers, and I've had just like a complete existential crisis about all the Doge stuff of like, how do we make sure that people don't see this reporting when they kind of bump into it, people who aren't really reaching out for their politics. And if they say, oh, the government's getting cut, well, I don't like the government that much, I have a bad relationship with it, I think we do need to cut some fat, when of course that's not what they're doing. And this probationary employee firing is just a perfect example, because it's not people who just got to their government job a couple of months ago. Maybe they transferred where they were, maybe they're working for a different agency now, and what it reflects is honestly just how dumb the people working at Doge are. Like, these are not smart people, they do not have your best interest in mind, and I worry about any legitimacy that is given to them, and sometimes the way that we present the conversation around, oh, well, it is important to trim the fat, because of course we do want reform, but if they want to do that, then go through Congress and actually take the real steps. That they're clearly not doing that. You're highlighting it. Thank you so much for using your voice, taking just the unapologetic tone that everyone has been asking for so much recently. It makes us all feel so much better about this fight. It is difficult every day, but your work is making it so much easier. Thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. I'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely.